Hello and welcome to the Bikini Bottom Elementary Library Program Monthly Report for April 2015. My name is Ms. Vasquez and I'm going to review the report with you all. First, I'd like to welcome everyone. Welcome students, parents, community members, teachers, and administrators. We thank you for your continued support of the Bikini Bottom Elementary Library Services. And thanks to everyone's efforts, we have accomplished several of our campus library goals. One of the first goals that we accomplished was creating and launching a makerspace. The purpose of the makerspace was to give students a hands-on learning experience that would reinforce classroom learning objectives in addition to the leadership and management skills. We met two of our goals. The first one was to increase student mastery of targeted TEKS, which were consistently weakest in grades 3 through 5. So for the makerspace, we focused on the math TEKS. Another goal we met was to include students in the leadership and management process via the makerspace. So students suggested that we did a construction-related makerspace workshop. It was their idea to reach out to a local business, which was Lowe's hardware store. They organized a building activity at our campus. Lowe's agreed to come out to our campus. They also agreed to provide 2 employees for support. And in addition, they provided 30 building kits and any necessary tools for the workshop, all free of charge, which was amazing. The students then began to advertise the Makerspace workshop and they registered the other students for the event. To say the least, the program was a huge success and all 30 slots were filled. The Makerspace provided students practice with the following literacies. The first literacy was reading literacy, and we were able to target TEKS 4.13, which is reading comprehension of informational text and procedural text. With the workshop, they were able to work with texts that explain factual information presented graphically, such as charts, diagrams, graphs, and illustrations. Each kit came with a set of instructions for students to follow, and they were encouraged to read as much of that on their own, and we would assist them occasionally whenever they encountered some problems. We would come in and then help them understand the text. So we did challenge students to work on that on their own and try to make sense of what they had in front of them, their blueprint, the text with the graphs. Another literacy that students really got their hands on was with math literacy. We actually hit a lot of TEKS with this one. We did TEKS 4.8 through 12 as well as 4.14. So some topics that we covered were geometry, spatial reasoning, measurement, problem solving. The workshop allowed for concrete experiences. It allowed students to make estimations. And most of all, it helped them make connections within and outside mathematics and informal reasoning. They used the processes together with manipulatives to develop conceptual understanding, which is key. The Makerspace also allowed us to meet the following library standards. So we're looking at Standard 1, Principle 2, which is to integrate knowledge of the state curriculum. So in this case, it was math and reading TEKS. We were also able to teach effective use of print resources related to curricular and independent learning needs. Principle 2 states that we work with students, teachers, and the community to promote local and state reading initiatives that encourage learners to read, write, view, speak, and listen for understanding and enjoyment. So the Makerspace actually allowed us to hit these 2 standards and the principles, and we did a very good job with it, and students really had a good time. So again, these are coming from the School Library Program Standard and Guidelines for Texas, 2005. Let's talk about one of the services that we focused on this month. Our first service is actually called the Suggestible Initiative. The purpose of this was to instill a greater sense of ownership in the campus library program by all stakeholders. We were able to meet one of our goals with this initiative, which was goal number 5, which was to seek and put into action from teachers, input from teachers and other school campus staff, district program staff, students, and parents regarding the functionality of the library. So we put a suggestion box, and one of the teachers came by and suggested that we do a suggestible initiative. And pretty much it helps us welcome any of our stakeholders to write, blog, draw, or even video record their recommendation of their favorite read. Okay, so the purpose is for everyone to be able to share their love of reading and motivate others to find interest in the books that maybe they may not have considered before. This idea works to promote reading and speaking, writing, or creating a production about a book. Therefore, it's giving everybody opportunities to communicate based on their own learning preferences. How did our stakeholders access this initiative? Well, we had many different ways. We provided copies of the suggestion form at our circulation desk, so we had hard copies there at the library, and then we also uploaded them on our webpage, so we had them online. Anybody could write their suggestion using the guided form. They could video record their suggestions, which would be shared on the library webpage. The library would then also provide the video equipment. Okay, so if you have an interest in doing an online or a video recommendation, we have the equipment that we can check out for anybody interested in doing it in that format. The video entries are placed on our school webpage, and anybody can access them 24/7. The written forms or the drawings, they are posted at our library entrance for viewing. Okay, and another thing we started doing was we started to actually have students volunteer to read their suggestion during announcements. And this is a very brief recommendation. However, it's a really good way to reach those students who never really come to the library. By them hearing a suggestion through the announcements, kind of entices them to go into the library, check out that book that their friend or their classmate suggested. And so it's a really good way to get those the traditional non-library users to come in on their own and then look for books, which is excellent. That's our main goal also, is to get people into the library. Here's some of the usage data. Our library tracked the number of forms that were submitted to the library and the number of videos and forms that were submitted online. So we found that 20 copies were submitted to our library in person, 8 electronic forms were submitted online, and we actually had 2 videos submitted online. So we had a total of 30 book suggestions submitted by all stakeholders. So that includes students and parents and teachers. Even one administrator gave us a recommendation, a book recommendation. So again, our goal is to increase the number of book suggestions per month. We're going to be tracking that data, and then we're going to correlate that data with the number of checkouts for each suggested title. Okay, so we already started to do that. I wanted to see, are these books actually being checked out more? So we started to track the circulation data. We tracked the number of books that have been suggested so far to see if there was an increase in the number of checkouts. And what we saw was that the books that are suggested are actually being checked out more frequently. So for example, Title 1, before anybody suggested it, it was only checked out 3 times the month before. Once it was suggested, it was looked for and checked out 7 times that month. And then Title 2, before it was 5 and increased to 9. As you can see with Title 3 and 4, the book suggestions are working to increase circulation. So due to that increase in popularity of certain books, and in order to continue to meet the needs of our students, we decided to allocate a portion of our monthly budget to acquiring additional copies of the books or other books that are similar to those popular titles. So $250 to continue to add to our collection. Our second service focuses on instruction. Now, the purpose of this was to model and promote the highest standard of conduct and ethics and integrity in the use of the web and other print resources. Our library program wants to ensure that students in grades 3 through 5 that they know how to properly use technology when they're looking for information. So again, this is one of the standards that's coming from the library program's Standards and Guidelines for Texas 2005. This initiative helped us meet our second goal, which was to teach students how to properly use technology when obtaining information. So we based ourselves on a brief and informal technology survey to kind of gauge students and how they felt about technology, and then we decided to focus on 2 basic skills per month. So for this last month, we focused on how to navigate the school's online database and how to use keyword searches. All right, so like I said, students were given a brief survey, collected the data, then we scheduled classes for the first mini lesson held at the library, and we were pretty flexible. We were accessible because we could do the session in the library, in the computer lab, or in the classroom. Teachers and students, if they felt that they needed additional support, they can actually go to the library or online and then fill out a request form for that additional support. Teachers can even go online to the library webpage and then view a calendar that shows when I'm already scheduled for other classes, and they can go in and schedule another session. And so that way they don't have to wait for me to get back to them. They can just go in and add their class, their time, their date, if it is available. As well as, in addition to that, we also uploaded the same trainings that we used to the online webpage, so that way anybody could access the same trainings. If they wanted to review it, they could go back and see it any time of the day, 24/7, by anybody, any stakeholder. All right, here was some of the usage data. First, we wanted to see, okay, did students feel that they were more confident with using the databases, and were they more confident in conducting searches? And we conducted the same survey twice, and we found that there was an increase. Students showed that under survey, they showed that they felt more comfortable using the database, and they also felt more confident in conducting the searches on their own. But not only that, we wanted to make sure that they were actually accessing the database. So then we continued to track. We saw how back in January and February, there was not much usage for the database. However, once we began the trainings in March, we saw that naturally in March, while we're training, there's going to be more logging into the database. But we were very happy to see that in April, that the usage continued to increase. So that means that even after the training, students on their own began to access the database that we trained them on, and they were able to go in. We had a lot more students accessing that one database. Okay, so again, it's important to note that the training began in March. Training focused on one database at a time, and that we will continue to collect the data as we continue to introduce more databases to our students. Here's a little bit of information on the budget. The district spends approximately $4,000 per month on database services such as online encyclopedias. By training our students on how to navigate the resources, we ensure that we're maximizing our investments. If we train students and then we notice that the usage is still fairly low, then we have that data to support cutting that service from our district, or maybe even just like decreasing the subscription and maybe, using funds for more appropriate resources that students would actually access. So anyways, that was our report for the month. I would like to thank you again. The staff and I would like to thank you for all your continued support for library sources, and we will continue to keep you updated on our progress toward our library program goals.